Hello, this is Real World Audio, and this will be a very short one. And Eddie asked, how can you find a speaker's sensitivity if it's not listed in the specifications? So now I'm going to give a very short answer for that, and I just recommend for everyone to take out your cell phone and take a picture of this, and then you can have it with you, and you can just look in your photos and have for yourself as a reference. And sometimes even when they give you a sensitivity or efficiency rating for a loudspeaker, you will find that this is actually more accurate, because sometimes the sensitivity ratings provided with a loudspeaker are served with a generous helping of fish sauce. So here we go. So these are the numbers. So basically how you can tell the efficiency, it's based on the size of the loudspeaker and the bass extension. So efficiency, size, and bass ability, these three depend on each other. So basically you need I call it lung size, because it's not the size of the cabinet that you see in front of yourself that matters. It's the size of the lungs of that loudspeaker that matters really, which is the amount of air that is contained inside the speakers. So if a loudspeaker has a very thick cabinet, then it means that its lungs are small, even though if its size is imposing, if that most of that size is taken up by its cabinet walls and internal bracing, then the available lung is a kind of modest. So basically, talking about the lung size, which is the free air inside the loudspeaker, I gave a couple of different categories, and then you can put them in there. So starting with small bookshelf speakers, which have less than 10 liters of free air volume in them, that's equivalent to a third of a cubic foot here by our metrics in the US. And for these, usually with a bass extension of 60 hertz, you get a sensitivity or efficiency rating between 78 dB per watt meter to 83 dB per watt meter. You get 78 if it's like really tiny, really small bookshelf, and 83 if it's a largish one, let's say, that has 10 liters of free air volume inside. And when you go, so basically if it's a small bookshelf, then the sensitivity will be low 80s. And if it's an average bookshelf, so which is like a largish bookshelf speaker, and as an example, let's say the Ryan 610, that's a fine example for this average healthy bookshelf speaker size. That's between 16 to 20 liters air contained inside. That's a half cubic foot to 2/3 of a cubic foot. The sensitivity will be in the mid 80s, and bass extension down to 50 hertz. Of course, you can find specimen which a little bit push these numbers, like when you look at the Ryan 610, then the sensitivity rating for that is 86 dB, so it's mid 80s, but the bass extension goes down to 44 hertz. So it's like for the sensitivity, that's still mid 80s, right? But bass extension is quite a bit better than 50 hertz there. But for most average bookshelf speakers, 50 hertz mid 80s, that's a nice conservative expectation that you can get. If you get a tiny bit better than that, you are still fine. But if someone is selling you an average bookshelf speaker with bass extension to pushing below 50 hertz or even 50 hertz, but mid 90 dBs, so like 10 dBs higher than that, then those numbers are cooked and marinated in a very, very thick fish sauce. So now let's go for small floor standard loudspeakers with a free air volume of 1 cubic foot. That's about 30 liters. And for that, 45 hertz bass extension corresponds to about 90 dB or so sensitivity. So like either very low 90s or very high 80s, about 45 hertz. When we look at big floor standard speakers, that's 60 liters free air volume, 2 cubic feet, sensitivity about low 90s, I would say, and bass extension getting close to 30 hertz. And when you upgrade to a huge floor standard, which is like 3 cubic feet, 90 liters free air volume, then mid 90s sensitivity and low 30s bass extension. And so these are basically the ones, or I would say like up to the big floor standard from small bookshelf. That's the majority of loudspeakers that you can get. And everything that has electrodynamic drivers falls into this category. So I'm not talking about electrostatics, quads and things like that. They do not follow any of these rules. This is just for loudspeakers that have cabinets and that have electrodynamic drivers. But I also wanted to include the giant floor standard category, which is the true 100 plus dB sensitivity. And if you see a loudspeaker that is advertised as 100 dB plus, if it doesn't have a cabinet that is bigger than 200 liters or 7 cubic feet, then those numbers are cooked in fish sauce, marinated and truly baked, because it's not happening. Those numbers are vastly inflated. So basically, you can follow this table and it will give you guidance, I would say, in almost every case. And this is for those who have attention span no longer than 7 minutes. Okay, if your brains can handle a little bit more than that, then this is absolute ground zero. And here are these things that we can add to that. If you can find numbers which vary from these, but if you find better bass extension provided for a loudspeaker, it means that for the same size you will have lower efficiency. And the opposite is true. If you find that the bass extension of that loudspeaker is not so good, then it can have higher efficiency for the same cabinet size. So let's look for an example. Let's see, if you have a small floor standard that's rated at 90 dB 45 hertz. Now, if you find a small floor standard that's rated at 95 dB, it means that the bass extension will be much higher than this, probably about 60 hertz or so. Or if your same floor standard, they advertise that it can go down to 30 hertz, it means that it cannot push beyond mid 80s in the sensitivity. So you can look at any advertised loudspeaker, look what the size, where it fits. Is it a small bookshelf, average bookshelf, small floor standard, big, huge, or a giant? And you read what the bass extension that they sell that loudspeaker with, and then you can gauge what the sensitivity is. So if they give you a big floor standard and they say it goes down to 20 hertz, then you have to take away from the sensitivity about 5 dB or so. So then you know that mid 80s, that's the max that the big floor standard will be capable of, and not more. And also, if they say that the big floor standard can push out 97 dB, then the base extension will be no better than 60 Hertz or so. And in addition, this is true for every loudspeaker that you set up in a normal way, which is when you have a nice room and you pull out the loudspeakers from the corners. They are positioned in an ideal setting, which is far away from the wall behind and away from the walls on the sides. And that's when you get the most optimal imaging, and that's when all of these sensitivity ratings apply. However, there are some loudspeakers which are designed to use, for example, the floor to extend their bass response. And for those loudspeakers, you can find that either the sensitivity value is higher than what you see here, or the bass extension can go considerably lower with the same efficiency that you see there. So for example, I have the AO speakers that I built, and then you have seen it in my videos, and they use the floor to boost their bass response, and their sensitivity is a little higher than the 90 here, it's 91 dB, and their bass extension goes a little lower than 45 Hertz. It goes, I think, probably about 38 Hertz or so. Which means that if you put it in a real room, in my room, they work down to 30 Hertz. And in addition, so that's number one. But for a loudspeaker to work with the floor, it has to be a floor standard loudspeaker. Bookshelf speakers are unable to work with the floor because they are on a stand or they sit on a shelf. So you need your loudspeaker to have a port close to the floor or a driver close to the floor level to use the floor as a booster for the low frequency extension, and thereby increasing the overall sensitivity of the loudspeaker. And now there's the next level. So before we go to the next level, here the good thing is that when you use the floor to boost the bass, that does not affect imaging. Next step is when a loudspeaker uses the rear wall or corner loading to boost the bass response. This is typical for many of the clip loudspeakers using the rear wall or corner. Just think about the corn wall speakers, which are named because they use the corner wall. So you have to put them to the corner for them to measure that efficiency, that sensitivity where they are specified at. If you pull them out into your room, to the same spot where you listen to, let's say, to Ryan speakers, then in that case you will lose all the bass, and you will trash those loudspeakers saying that they don't have any bass. Sure, they don't have, because they are designed to work close to the rear wall, to work in the corners. And when a loudspeaker is designed that way, if you pull them out, then you will destroy their capability to produce good sound. But the opposite is true. If a loudspeaker is designed to work in your room, if you push it onto the wall, it will harm the sound just as well as pulling a loudspeaker designed to work in a corner into middle of your room. And one more warning for those of you who use loudspeakers that use the floor boost. So basically any loudspeaker that has a passive radiator at the bottom of your loudspeaker, which is like close to the floor level, either firing forward, backward, or down to the floor. If you don't have a hardwood or stone floor, then most of your bass will be gone. Bye bye, adios. So if you have a loudspeaker that uses the floor boost, then a hardwood floor is mandatory. And if you have a shaggy carpet or floor carpet or a thick carpet, then those speakers will not produce bass in your room. So I hope that this video serves everyone. If you have attention deficit disorder, and I mean it in a friendly way, there are some people who have this as a condition. For them, my deepest sympathies. But for those of you who are just simply unable to concentrate for more than 5 minutes because you never developed the stamina for it, I hope this video fulfilled your every desire, because I told the basics in the first 7 minutes, and the rest of it, if you listen to it, then you really can use this chart fully. If not, then you got what you wanted, a black and white response that's good for nothing. So thank you for tuning in. Have an awesome day. Bye bye.